They laughed at her accent. They dismissed her ideas. They assumed she would never rise above their expectations. Yet the very same people who underestimated her were about to witness a transformation so profound that it would redefine leadership, resilience, and possibility. This is the story of Angela, a woman who turned doubt into fuel, rejection into strategy, and ordinary moments into extraordinary triumphs. From the very beginning, Angela's journey was defined by a quiet determination that refused to be silenced by skepticism or prejudice. Born into a world that often judged her by the sound of her voice and the color of her skin, she learned early that success is not given. It is earned through preparation, persistence, and unwavering belief in oneself. Every challenge she faced, every door that closed, and every no she received became a stepping stone toward a vision she carried relentlessly in her heart. To prove that ability, courage, and vision are not bound by expectation. In a world that constantly underestimated her, Angela developed a mindset that saw possibility where others saw weakness. She understood that ordinary people, when guided by vision, discipline, and empathy, are capable of extraordinary achievements. From humble beginnings to moments of rejection and doubt, she cultivated the skills, resilience, and insight necessary to seize opportunities that others could not even imagine. Every small act of perseverance, every calculated risk, and every decision rooted in integrity became a part of a larger narrative, one that would eventually lead her to acquire the very company that had once laughed at her accent. This story is not merely about business or acquisition. It is about human potential, leadership, and the extraordinary power of belief. It is about the way ordinary people, armed with courage and guided by purpose, can change the trajectory of their lives and the lives of everyone around them. It is about the triumph of vision over doubt, resilience over adversity, and action over hesitation. Angela's journey is a testament to what happens when preparation meets opportunity, when empathy guides leadership, and when the courage to persevere transforms possibility into reality. They laughed at her accent. They whispered in boardrooms. They smirked on conference calls. They assumed her words carried less weight than theirs. But what they didn't see was the strength behind her voice, the fire in her mind, the clarity had in her vision, and the determination that would not be silenced. Her name was Angela. She grew up in a neighborhood where resources were scarce, but dreams were abundant. From her first job waiting tables to late nights, in libraries lit by the soft glow of desk lamps, Angela learned a lesson that would guide her life. Perseverance is forged in the ordinary moments, in the quiet grind, in the choice to rise when it would have been easier to surrender. Her path was not smooth. Investors doubted her, colleagues overlooked her, and even some friends questioned her ambitions. Yet she carried forward, fueled by the conviction that the world's skepticism could never define her worth or her potential. Angela understood a fundamental truth. Change is not given. Change is created through work, courage, and relentless belief. Then came the opportunity that would redefine everything. the company she admired, the very same organization whose executives had laughed at her accent, was floundering. Its leadership had grown complacent. Its vision was clouded. Most saw weakness. Angela saw possibility. She saw a canvas waiting for bold strokes. With courage, she raised capital. She built a team that believed in her vision. She presented a plan so bold that it shook the room. Not through intimidation, but through clarity and conviction. And when the day came, she did not merely step onto the stage of leadership, she bought the entire company. Those who once doubted her watched as she transformed the very institution they underestimated. What set Angela apart was not just her financial victory. It was her empathy, her understanding that leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. She nurtured employees, fostered innovation, and created an environment where ordinary people could do extraordinary things. She showed the world that leadership is not about dominance, but about vision, courage, and care. Angela's story reminds us of a profound truth. Change begins with personal responsibility. To act when action is difficult. To persist when doubt surrounds you. To believe in yourself, even when the world does not. Ordinary people, when given opportunity and belief, can achieve the extraordinary. So today, I ask you to take a lesson from Angela. Speak boldly, work tirelessly, lift others as you rise. The world may laugh, hesitate, and doubt, but perseverance, integrity, and empathy will always outshine skepticism. A better future is not delivered to our doorstep. It is built by those brave enough to step forward, to rise, to lead. They laughed at her accent. Not loudly, not always intentionally, but in the quiet, dismissive ways that cut deeper than any words spoken outright. In boardrooms, lined with polished mahogany and glass, where decisions shaped careers and futures, her voice was met with polite nods that carried no real acknowledgement. She could feel it in the sidelong glances, the quick smirks exchanged behind her back, the subtle shaking of heads as if her words carried less weight than the words of those around her. Every conversation was a test. Every introduction, a subtle reminder that she was an outsider in spaces where she had every right to belong. Angela remembered her first business conference vividly. She had walked in with a crisp suit, a folder of meticulously prepared notes, and a heart full of hope. As she spoke to the room, she noticed the polite smiles that did not reach the eyes of some executives. They would lean back in their chairs, arms crossed, pretending to consider her ideas, while silently judging the rhythm and intonation of her voice. She had come to share strategy, insights, and solutions. And yet all anyone seemed to hear was the difference in how she sounded, the cadence that marked her as someone other. It would have been easy to let the laughter, subtle though it was, diminish her. Easy to retreat, to adjust herself, to silence her own voice in an attempt to blend in. Many might have chosen that path, for the world can be cruel in its insistence that conformity is safer than courage. But Angela had learned early in life that the world often underestimates those who come from outside the circles of privilege. She had grown up in a neighborhood where people whispered doubts, where resources were scarce, where the odds were stacked against you before you even stepped forward. She understood that skepticism from others was not a measure of her worth, but rather a reflection of their own limitations, their own inability to see beyond the surface. The laughter was a challenge. It was a question posed not in words, but in the way people reacted to her presence. Do you belong here? Can you lead? Is your vision credible? Angela knew that the answer would not be found in confrontation or argument. It would be found in action. It would be found in demonstrating, through every decision and every effort, that her voice, her vision, and her leadership were not defined by the comfort zones of those around her. She decided, silently but firmly, that every doubt cast her way would become fuel for her journey. She began to notice the patterns early. The way her colleagues would subtly interrupt. How questions directed at her were deflected toward others. The way assumptions were made about her capability based solely on her speech. It could have been discouraging, but Angela reframed it. She began to see each moment of doubt as an opportunity, each dismissive glance as a chance to show clarity and strength. She listened intently, spoke deliberately, and prepared with a precision that left no room for misjudgment. And while they focused on her accent, she focused on mastery. Mastering her craft, mastering her message, mastering the art of turning skepticism into opportunity. Angela's experience was not isolated. Many extraordinary leaders have faced the quiet, dismissive laughter of a world reluctant to believe in them. It is a subtle weapon of doubt, one that can erode confidence if allowed to take root, but she chose not to let it define her. Instead, she remembered the countless people who had spoken words of encouragement in moments no one else noticed. The teacher who believed in her potential, the mentor who offered guidance without judgment, the friend who said, "You are capable of more than they will ever imagine." These voices became louder than the laughter, shaping a resilience that could not be broken by the casual dismissal of others. Every day, Angela carried this experience with her, not as a wound, but as a reminder of the work ahead. She understood that the laughter of others would never disappear entirely, but that it could be transformed into a force for change. She learned to rise above it, to respond not with defensiveness, but with excellence, to let her actions speak in the spaces where her words were questioned. She discovered that real power lies not in silencing critics, but in proving them wrong through perseverance, vision, and unwavering belief in one's own potential. The doubtful laughter followed her for years, a constant backdrop to her journey. And yet, with every step forward, with every challenge overcome, it grew quieter in comparison to the growing impact of her work. Each meeting, each presentation, each strategy executed flawlessly was a testament not just to her skill, but to her resilience. The laughter that had once sought to undermine her became insignificant in the face of her relentless pursuit of excellence, her refusal to be defined by perception, and her determination to lead in a way that inspired and elevated everyone around her. Angela grew up in a neighborhood where opportunity was often whispered about, but rarely handed out. The streets, she knew, were lined with modest homes, corner stores where the cashiers knew everyone's name, and sidewalks worn smooth by generations of children who played, dreamed, and sometimes stumbled into life's harsh realities. She learned early that dreams, no matter how bright, required action, and that the measure of a person was often not found in the grandeur of their surroundings, but in the way they met the challenges that life presented. Her first job came at 14, delivering newspapers before dawn. She would rise while the rest of the neighborhood still slept, feeling the cool air on her face, her mind buzzing with ambition and a desire to make a difference. Each paper she delivered was more than just a newspaper. It was a reminder that diligence and persistence mattered, that small, ordinary tasks carried lessons for a lifetime. The early mornings taught her discipline. The repeated motion of walking block after block instilled endurance, and the interaction with people from all walks of life, neighbors, shopkeepers, customers, nurtured empathy, the ability to understand, connect, and lead with care. After school, she took on jobs that many teenagers might have avoided: waiting tables, bagging groceries, assisting in small family-owned businesses. Each position was humble, each paycheck modest. But Angela approached them as a laboratory for life lessons. She watched her bosses and mentors closely, noting how some treated employees with respect, while others wielded authority like a weapon. She observed how patience, initiative, and integrity could turn even the smallest responsibility into an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to prepare for something far greater. Even as a child, Angela understood that education was her key to expansion, not just academically, but as a bridge between where she was and where she hoped to be. She spent countless hours in the local library, surrounded by the faint smell of aging books and polished wood. There, she pored over biographies of leaders, innovators, and trailblazers, finding in their stories not just inspiration, but instruction. She read about inventors who persisted through repeated failure, entrepreneurs who built empires from nothing, and visionaries who refused to let circumstance define them. Every page she turned reinforced a principle she carried with her for life: perseverance is more powerful than privilege, and resilience is more valuable than acceptance. Her humble beginnings also exposed her to the inequities of the world, the subtle and overt barriers that kept many from reaching their full potential. Angela witnessed families struggling to pay bills, children denied opportunities due to circumstance, and communities that were vibrant with talent, yet overlooked by those in positions of influence. But instead of discouraging her, these observations fueled her resolve. She became determined not only to rise herself, but to create pathways for others, to transform spaces where talent was ignored into environments where it could flourish. Angela's family, though not wealthy, was rich in lessons of perseverance and moral guidance. Her parents emphasized the importance of responsibility, teaching her that every choice carried consequences and that integrity was non-negotiable. They encouraged her to work hard, to learn continuously, and to carry herself with dignity, even when others sought to undermine or belittle her. They celebrated small victories with the same reverence as large ones, reinforcing the notion that progress is built step by step, moment by moment, effort by effort. School was another proving ground. Angela excelled not because the system made it easy for her, but because she refused to let limitations define her. She participated in student councils, debate clubs, and extracurricular activities, often balancing schoolwork with part-time jobs and family responsibilities. Each challenge she faced, a difficult assignment, a skeptical teacher, a classmate who doubted her ability, was an opportunity to practice resilience, to refine her skills, and to strengthen her conviction that success was not a matter of luck, but of consistent effort and unwavering belief. Humble beginnings, Angela learned, were not a liability, they were a crucible. They shaped her character, molded her determination, and instilled in her a sense of empathy that would later define her leadership. The very experiences that might have discouraged others instead became the foundation for her vision, a vision that combined ambition with compassion, drive with understanding, and courage with wisdom. Every ordinary day of her youth, from the newspaper deliveries to late night study sessions, from humble jobs to community involvement, contributed to a mindset that refused to accept limitations imposed by circumstance. She discovered that greatness is often nurtured in the quiet, unseen moments, in the repetition of effort, in the belief that small actions performed with purpose accumulate into extraordinary outcomes. Angela's life was shaped not only by her ambitions, but by the countless ordinary moments that demanded extraordinary perseverance. It was not the grand gestures or high-profile victories that defined her early journey. It was the quiet, relentless effort in spaces where few noticed, where recognition was scarce, and where the world's attention seemed to fall elsewhere. These ordinary moments became the proving ground for her character, the laboratory in which her resilience was forged. From the earliest days of her first jobs, she learned that excellence was a choice. Folding towels at a small hotel, serving tables in a bustling cafe, or stocking shelves at the local grocery store, Angela approached each task with intentionality. She understood that even in routine work there was an opportunity to practice diligence, to cultivate discipline, and to demonstrate integrity. Each action, however small, was a testament to her commitment to excellence, a reminder that perseverance is less about immediate recognition and more about the consistent application of effort over time. She encountered setbacks frequently. A miscommunication with a manager, a customer complaint, a minor error that others might have brushed aside as insignificant. These were the tests of her patience and resolve. Rather than allowing frustration to take hold, Angela reframed every challenge as a lesson, a chance to refine her skills, and an opportunity to grow stronger. She discovered that the true measure of perseverance is not in avoiding difficulties, but in facing them with determination, learning from them, and pressing forward with renewed focus. Angela also experienced the subtle discouragement that comes from being underestimated. Colleagues assumed she was inexperienced, supervisors overlooked her potential, peers questioned her capabilities. And yet, in these moments, she found motivation. The skepticism of others became a quiet fuel, a reminder that success is rarely given freely, but earned through sustained effort, thoughtful strategy, and unwavering belief in one's own potential. She understood that those who doubt you are not the ones who determine your future. Your choices, your commitment, and your actions do. Her perseverance extended beyond work into her personal development. Angela devoted hours to self-education, reading voraciously, attending seminars, and seeking mentors who could challenge her thinking. She treated every opportunity to learn as a seed planted for future growth, understanding that ordinary habits, consistent study, reflection, and practice were the foundation upon which extraordinary achievements are built. She realized that talent alone is not enough. It must be honed, nurtured, and sustained through persistence, even when results are not immediately visible. Angela's perseverance was also defined by her empathy and willingness to uplift others while striving for her own goals. She noticed the efforts of her peers, celebrated their successes, and offered guidance when possible. She understood that perseverance is not a solitary endeavor. It thrives in environments where support, encouragement, and collaboration exist alongside individual effort. By helping others, she reinforced her own resilience, creating a cycle of growth and strength that extended beyond her own ambitions. Even when faced with moments of exhaustion, self-doubt, or societal bias, Angela never allowed herself to retreat into complacency. She recognized that perseverance requires courage. The courage to continue when no one is watching. To take the steps that feel repetitive or mundane, and to trust that the accumulation of small, disciplined actions will eventually lead to transformation. In this way, she turned the ordinary into extraordinary, understanding that every small effort compounds, shaping character, opportunity, and destiny in ways that are often invisible at first. Her story demonstrates that perseverance is not a momentary burst of energy, but a lifestyle of continuous effort and intentional action. It is in the small, consistent choices, the decision to speak up when overlooked, to refine a skill after repeated failure, to remain focused despite distractions, that resilience is built. These are the moments that define leaders, innovators, and changemakers. Angela embraced them fully, recognizing that the world often underestimates the power of sustained, ordinary effort. Through her journey, she discovered a profound truth: perseverance is not about luck, recognition, or immediate results. It is about commitment to a vision, trust in the process, and the courage to continue when circumstances are unremarkable, when the path is unclear, and when others doubt your potential. The ordinary is where greatness is forged, and Angela learned to see every challenge, every task, and every quiet victory as an essential step toward the extraordinary outcomes she would one day achieve. Angela's journey was not defined by smooth paths or easy victories. From the earliest stages of her career, she encountered rejection, not once, but repeatedly, in ways that tested her resolve and her belief in herself. Investors dismissed her proposals, colleagues overlooked her contributions, and mentors occasionally doubted her vision. The word, no, became a frequent companion, spoken politely, sometimes harshly, but always in a way that challenged her to rise above the limitations imposed by others. Each rejection carried its own weight. There were moments when the doors of opportunity seemed permanently closed, when every well-prepared presentation or carefully crafted proposal was met with skepticism. She learned quickly that rejection is rarely personal. It is often a reflection of others' limited vision, their adherence to comfort, or their inability to see the possibilities that lie beyond conventional thinking. Yet, even when understanding the nature of these barriers, the sting of being dismissed or underestimated was never easy to bear. Angela's response to rejection was deliberate. She refused to internalize the doubts of others as a measure of her worth. Instead, she viewed every no as a lesson, a prompt to reassess, to refine her approach, and to strengthen her resolve. Rejection became a teacher, offering insight into where her communication strategy or preparation could improve. She began to see setbacks not as obstacles to her journey, but as signposts directing her toward greater clarity, greater focus, and greater innovation. One particularly pivotal moment came early in her career when she pitched an idea to a panel of senior executives, a proposal that she had spent months preparing, analyzing every risk and opportunity. She spoke with conviction, presenting her vision clearly and confidently. Yet the response was a polite dismissal. They praised her effort, but ultimately rejected the idea, citing concerns about feasibility and alignment with current strategies. Many would have felt defeated, would have questioned their own abilities, or stepped back from pursuing ambitious goals. Angela felt the weight of their skepticism, but she did not let it define her next steps. Instead, she asked questions. She sought feedback. She examined the rejection not as failure, but as a mirror reflecting what could be improved, what could be clarified, and what could be made stronger. She recognized that perseverance without reflection is blind effort, but perseverance with insight becomes transformative. Through this lens, rejection was not a barrier, but a catalyst for growth. Angela also faced rejection from her peers and colleagues, individuals who doubted her because of her background, her accent, or the path she had chosen. They questioned her leadership potential, undermined her ideas in meetings, and subtly attempted to sway decisions against her. And yet, she continued forward. She learned that true resilience is not about ignoring criticism, but about distinguishing between criticism that hinders and criticism that guides. She accepted constructive insight, but rejected the limitations others tried to impose, using every challenge as fuel to sharpen her skills deepen her understanding, and strengthen her confidence. Over time, Angela's repeated encounters with rejection shaped her character and her approach to leadership. She developed empathy for those who face barriers, recognizing that every individual who experiences doubt, dismissal, or skepticism carries the potential to rise above it. She learned to listen carefully, to respond thoughtfully, and to act decisively, understanding that the strength to persevere often grows in the shadow of obstacles. Her experience also taught her patience. Rejection rarely has an immediate silver lining. The impact of a no may not be apparent for weeks, months, or even years. But Angela understood that each setback, each closed door, was part of a larger journey. A journey that required endurance, adaptability, and unshakable faith in her own vision. She discovered that persistence in the face of rejection is not a passive endurance, but an active engagement with opportunity, a continual striving toward improvement, and a commitment to turning doubt into possibility. Through facing rejection again and again, Angela honed a mindset that would become essential to her success. She recognized that rejection is not the opposite of achievement, but an integral part of it. Every no tested her vision, sharpened her strategy, and reinforced her belief that resilience and perseverance are the true measures of potential. She came to understand that the journey to extraordinary achievement is paved with repeated setbacks, and that those who endure, adapt, and rise stronger with every challenge are the ones who ultimately transform possibility into reality. Every journey has a moment that defines it, a point where persistence and preparation converge with opportunity. For Angela, that moment arrived quietly, almost imperceptibly, in a world that often fails to notice the seeds of potential until they bloom. It was a moment when her vision, honed through years of perseverance and tempered by countless rejections, finally met the circumstances that would allow her to act decisively, to demonstrate the extraordinary capacity that had always resided within her. The company she had admired for years, the very organization whose executives had once dismissed her accent and underestimated her ability, was struggling. Its leadership had grown complacent. Innovation was stifled. Processes were inefficient, and morale among employees had begun to wane. Many outsiders saw only a failing corporation, a brand losing relevance in a fast-moving market. But Angela saw more than what appeared on the surface. She saw an opportunity. She saw a chance to create meaningful change, to rebuild, and to demonstrate that true leadership is measured not by past success, but by the ability to envision a better future and take bold steps to realize it. She studied the company meticulously. Every report, every quarterly result, every employee survey became a piece of a larger puzzle. Angela analyzed what was working, what had been neglected, and what could be transformed. She spoke with employees in quiet corners of the office, listening to their frustrations and aspirations, gaining insight into the culture that had been left behind by leadership, focused on hierarchy rather than empowerment. Through these conversations, she realized that the company was not broken. It was waiting for someone to recognize its potential and act with courage, vision, and purpose. Opportunity, Angela understood, does not always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it appears subtly as a window that requires courage and decisiveness to step through. She recognized that this turning point was not just about her personal ambition. It was about the people who depended on the company, the employees who had dreams suspended in the balance, and the clients whose trust had been built over decades. She saw the responsibility inherent in leadership, the weight of decision making, and the transformative power of acting with conviction. With careful planning, Angela assembled a strategy. She calculated risks with precision, considered the perspectives of stakeholders, and crafted a vision that was ambitious yet achievable. She knew that hesitation would allow others to maintain the status quo, to continue underestimating her, and to miss the opportunity for transformation. And so she acted. She reached out to investors, presenting a plan that was both bold and meticulously researched. She articulated the long-term potential, the steps required for turnaround, and the cultural shifts necessary to reignite innovation and morale. Her pitch was more than numbers and projections. It was a story of possibility, of renewal, and of the extraordinary outcomes that can emerge when vision meets action. This was also a personal turning point, a moment where Angela's years of perseverance, humility, and learning coalesced into a decisive action that would alter the trajectory of her life and the lives of countless others. She understood that leadership is tested not in comfort, but in moments that demand courage. The courage to see what others overlook. The courage to take responsibility when risk is high, and the courage to pursue a vision even when doubt surrounds you. She recognized that inaction would have been easier, safer, but ultimately less meaningful. True transformation, she knew, requires stepping forward when the stakes are greatest. Angela's turning point was not marked by fanfare or immediate acknowledgement. It was marked by preparation meeting opportunities, by the clarity of purpose through years of quiet effort, and by the unwavering belief that change begins with decisive action. She understood that turning points do not simply happen to us. They are created by those who refuse to wait, who take responsibility for their vision, and who act with courage in the face of uncertainty. Through this pivotal moment, Angela also demonstrated the essence of leadership, the ability to see beyond the immediate challenges, to anticipate the possibilities hidden within obstacles, and to inspire others to join in the pursuit of a shared, transformative vision. She recognized that the turning point was not just about acquiring a struggling company. It was about seizing the opportunity to create meaningful change, to build a culture of empowerment, and to prove that ordinary people, when guided by vision, courage, and integrity, can achieve extraordinary outcomes. Angela had learned early in her journey that the world often misjudges potential. What one person perceives as weakness, another can transform into strength. The ability to see opportunity where others see failure is a hallmark of visionary leadership, and it is this perspective that allowed Angela to redefine the very company that had once doubted her. While others focused on deficits, inefficiencies, and shortcomings, she saw the raw material for innovation, growth, and transformation. The struggling company she had set her sights on was a study in contrasts. On paper, it seemed a series of weaknesses: outdated systems, declining profits, hesitant leadership, and employees who had grown disengaged from the organization's mission. Many executives viewed it as a lost cause, a corporation past its prime, a challenge too complex to justify investment or risk. But Angela's eyes saw differently. She saw the untapped talent of employees who had been silenced rather than empowered. She saw processes that, with thoughtful restructuring, could be made more efficient and responsive. She saw a brand with recognition and loyalty that could be rekindled through purpose-driven leadership. Angela's ability to see possibility where others saw weakness was not an innate gift. It was cultivated over years of experience, reflection, and resilience. She had learned to question assumptions, to look beyond surface-level assessments, and to dig deeper into the fundamentals of any challenge. Weakness, she understood, is rarely absolute. It is often temporary, mismanaged, or misunderstood, in the hands of a leader willing to act decisively. What appears broken can be rebuilt, what appears stagnant can be energized, and what appears limited can be expanded. She approached the company's challenges with a meticulous lens. She interviewed employees across departments, seeking to understand their frustrations, ideas, and perspectives. What others saw as disengagement, she recognized as untapped commitment, waiting for guidance and trust. She studied operational inefficiencies, not to assign blame, but to identify opportunities for improvement and innovation. Where leadership had once sought to maintain control, she envisioned empowerment. Where hesitation had slowed progress, she envisioned momentum. Angela's perspective was informed by her core belief that people are the most valuable asset of any organization. She recognized that weaknesses are often symptoms of underutilized potential, lack of direction, or insufficient resources. By addressing these underlying causes, she could transform perceived deficiencies into competitive advantages. An employee who had been overlooked could become an innovator. A neglected process could become a model of efficiency. A disengaged team could become a driving force for cultural and operational renewal. This mindset also shaped her strategic vision. She did not approach the acquisition simply as a financial transaction. She approached it as a transformation project, a chance to demonstrate how intentional leadership, grounded in empathy and insight, can unlock possibilities hidden in plain sight. Every weakness she identified became a roadmap for potential, every challenge an invitation to innovation, and every limitation a test of her ingenuity and determination. Angela's ability to see possibility extended beyond operational and structural considerations. It also applied to perception and reputation. Where competitors or investors saw risk, she saw opportunity for differentiation. where employees felt demoralized. She saw a chance to inspire and elevate. Where stakeholders doubted, she saw a chance to prove the power of vision executed with courage and integrity. This perspective required patience, analytical rigor, and a steadfast commitment to her belief that transformation begins with understanding the true nature of what others dismiss. She also understood that leadership requires the courage to act on this insight. Seeing possibility is not enough. One must be willing to invest, to take responsibility, and to move decisively. Angela combined her analytical acumen with empathy, foresight, and a willingness to assume accountability for both risks and outcomes. She realized that ordinary people, given opportunity and guidance, could rise to extraordinary challenges, and that leadership's role is to create the conditions in which this potential can flourish. Through this approach, Angela began to map a path forward. Every weakness identified was paired with a strategy to transform it. Every challenge became a stepping stone toward innovation. Every doubt, whether internal or external, became fuel to refine her vision and amplify her impact. In seeing possibility where others saw weakness, she demonstrated the essence of leadership, the courage to look beyond limitations, the foresight to recognize potential, and the commitment to transform challenges into opportunities that benefit not just herself, but everyone connected to her vision. Angela understood that vision without action is merely imagination. She had spent years learning, preparing, and refining her skills, but she knew that all of her preparation would amount to little if she did not take decisive steps when the moment demanded courage. Bold action is the bridge between possibility and reality, and risk is the inevitable companion on that journey. For Angela, embracing both was not reckless. It was intentional, calculated, and rooted in unwavering belief in her capacity to lead and transform. The opportunity before her. The company she had identified as struggling yet full of potential required decisive movement. Many would have hesitated, intimidated by the scope of the challenge, the scrutiny of skeptics, or the complexity of navigating leadership in a resistant environment. Angela recognized that hesitation could be fatal. Every day of delay allowed mediocrity to persist, allowed opportunities to slip away, and allowed doubt to solidify in the minds of those who had once underestimated her. Leadership, she knew, is defined not by comfort, but by the courage to act decisively when the stakes are high. Her preparation had been meticulous. She studied financial statements, operational reports, and market trends. She met with advisors, mentors, and potential investors, outlining not only the risks, but the vision for what the company could become. Every step was calculated, every scenario considered, and yet she understood that risk is never entirely eliminated. Bold action requires embracing uncertainty, standing firm in one's convictions, and making decisions even when the outcome cannot be guaranteed. Angela had learned that those willing to take risks are often the ones who shape history, while those who wait for certainty remain in the shadows of possibility. When Angela presented her proposal to investors, She spoke with clarity, authority, and empathy. She did not sugarcoat the challenges. She acknowledged them openly, demonstrating both realism and confidence. She articulated a strategy for transformation, outlining how operational inefficiencies could be addressed, how leadership structures could be renewed, and how employee engagement could be reignited. She demonstrated that risk is not recklessness. It is a disciplined commitment to action, informed by insight, preparation, and vision. Every no she had encountered in the past had prepared her for this moment, sharpening her resolve and honing her ability to persuade, inspire, and lead. Angela also recognized that bold action extends beyond financial or operational decisions. It requires emotional courage, the willingness to step into spaces where skepticism and criticism are inevitable, to assert one's vision, even when others doubt, and to remain steadfast in the face of pressure. The very executives who had once laughed at her accent and underestimated her capability now observed her with curiosity and, in some cases, discomfort. Angela embraced the scrutiny, understanding that true leadership is often forged in the crucible of doubt, resistance, and expectation. Taking bold action also meant empowering others to embrace risk alongside her. She began to assemble a team of individuals who shared her vision, who were willing to challenge conventions, and who could act decisively in their areas of expertise. Leadership, she knew, is not a solitary endeavor. It is the orchestration of collective courage where each individual's contribution magnifies the impact of the whole. By creating a culture where calculated risk-taking was encouraged, she fostered innovation, resilience, and commitment throughout the organization. Angela's boldness extended to her personal belief in herself and her vision. Many would have been intimidated by the scale of the challenge or the potential criticism, but she treated doubt as a companion to growth rather than a barrier. She understood that action rooted in purpose and preparation carries its own power. She also knew that hesitation often breeds regret, while courageous action, even when accompanied by uncertainty, opens doors to opportunities that would otherwise remain closed. Every step Angela took was deliberate yet daring, measured yet courageous. She recognized that transformation requires both vision and the willingness to act decisively, to assume responsibility for the outcomes, and to lead with integrity even under intense scrutiny. The risks she embraced were not born of impulse, but of insight, preparation, and a profound commitment to turning potential into reality. Bold action, Angela knew, is the language of leaders who transform organizations, communities, and the lives of those around them. It requires courage, clarity, and unwavering commitment. Risk, when understood and managed, becomes the instrument through which vision becomes tangible, obstacles become opportunities, and ordinary people achieve extraordinary outcomes. Angela's ability to act boldly in the face of uncertainty demonstrated that leadership is not about avoiding danger, but about confronting it with confidence, purpose, and the understanding that extraordinary change requires extraordinary courage. Triumph is rarely sudden. It is the culmination of countless small victories, persistent effort, and the unwavering belief that what seems impossible today can become reality tomorrow. For Angela, the moment of triumph was not a sudden eruption of celebration, but the quiet, powerful realization that years of preparation, perseverance, and vision had converged into tangible impact. It was a moment that would not only redefine her journey, but also challenge the assumptions of those who had once underestimated her. When Angela finalized the acquisition of the company, the room was filled with observers who had once doubted her. Executives who had dismissed her ideas, investors who had questioned her strategy, and colleagues who had underestimated her resilience now faced a reality they had not anticipated. The woman whose accent had been a source of amusement had assumed full leadership of the organization. Their reactions varied. Some were shocked, some were incredulous, and others were silently reflective. But all recognized that change had arrived, and it had arrived through Angela's vision and determination. The triumph was not simply about ownership or financial success. It was a testament to perseverance, strategic insight, and the courage to act decisively in the face of uncertainty. Angela understood that acquiring the company was merely the beginning. Real triumph lies in the ability to transform opportunity into lasting impact. She approached this new chapter not with arrogance, but with humility, knowing that leadership requires empathy, foresight, and the ability to inspire collective commitment. Her first days in leadership were a delicate balance of reassurance and action. Employees, who had felt undervalued, now observed her closely, curious to see if her vision would translate into meaningful change. Angela met with teams across departments, listening to their concerns, acknowledging past frustrations, and outlining her strategy for renewal. She demonstrated that triumph is not about asserting dominance, but about creating trust, fostering collaboration, and empowering individuals to contribute their best work. The company's culture, once stagnant, began to shift under her guidance. Driven by clarity, purpose, and renewed energy, this moment of triumph also reflected the power of vision, executed with courage. Angela's acquisition was not an act of impulse. It was the result of years of preparation, relentless learning, and the accumulation of small actions that built momentum over time. Each rejection she had faced, each doubt she had encountered, and each challenge she had overcome contributed to her ability to seize this moment fully. Triumph, she understood, is the reward not only of success, but of resilience. The ability to rise repeatedly when others might have surrendered to discouragement. Angela's story of triumph resonated far beyond the company walls. It became a symbol of possibility for anyone who had faced skepticism, discrimination, or doubt. Her journey demonstrated that ordinary individuals, when armed with preparation, perseverance, and courage, can achieve extraordinary outcomes. It was proof that limitations imposed by others, whether rooted in bias, prejudice, or misunderstanding, do not determine one's destiny. Triumph is born of action, insight, and the willingness to persist against odds. that may appear insurmountable. What made this moment particularly profound was the way Angela used her success to uplift others. Triumph, she believed, is not fully realized until it is shared. She invested in her employees, cultivated innovation, and nurtured leadership within the organization. She recognized that the company's greatest asset was not its revenue or market share, but the people whose potential had long been underutilized. By empowering them, she multiplied the impact of her triumph, turning personal victory into collective transformation. The moment also reinforced a broader principle of leadership. Triumph is inseparable from responsibility. Angela understood that with the acquisition came an obligation to act with integrity, foresight, and commitment to the well-being of every individual connected to the organization. Ownership of success entails accountability, the courage to make difficult decisions, and the wisdom to recognize that every choice affects not just oneself, but a wider community. Triumph, in its truest sense, is the ability to wield achievement as a force for positive change. Through her moment of triumph, Angela demonstrated that leadership is not measured solely by the accolades one receives or the titles one holds, but by the ability to create enduring impact. It is measured by the courage to act when opportunity arises, the insight to see potential where others see weakness, and the commitment to persist despite rejection, doubt, and challenge. Every strategy implemented, every decision made, and every team member empowered reflected a triumph not of ego, but of vision, resilience, and purpose. Triumph alone does not define a leader. True leadership is measured not by the authority one holds, but by the ability to understand, uplift, and inspire those who are entrusted to one's care. Angela understood this profoundly. She had risen through challenges, skepticism, and countless moments of doubt. But she knew that the real test of her leadership would not be in the acquisition of the company or the accolades she received. It would be in how she nurtured her team, cultivated potential, and transformed an organization from within. Empathy became the cornerstone of her approach. Angela recognized that every individual brings unique experiences, strengths, and perspectives, and that understanding these nuances is critical to building a thriving environment. She listened deeply to her employees, creating spaces where voices that had been silenced were finally heard. She encouraged openness, acknowledging past frustrations while inspiring hope for the future. In doing so, she demonstrated that leadership is not about commanding from above, but about walking alongside people, understanding their challenges, and guiding them toward their fullest potential. Angela's empathetic approach was deliberate and intentional. She spent time meeting with teams across departments, often in informal settings, to understand the daily realities of the workplace. She observed where processes were inefficient, but she also observed the human impact. The stress of overworked employees, the talent overlooked, the passion untapped. Her leadership was rooted in the understanding that operational success and human well-being are inseparable. A company cannot thrive if its people are disengaged, disempowered, or undervalued. She understood that empathy is not a soft quality, but a strategic imperative, one that drives loyalty, innovation, and resilience. Through empathetic leadership, Angela empowered her employees to take initiative, voice ideas, and embrace accountability. She fostered an environment where mistakes were treated as opportunities for learning rather than failures to be punished. This approach cultivated confidence, creativity, and a sense of ownership across the organization. Employees who had once been hesitant to speak up began contributing boldly. Teams collaborated more effectively. Innovation flourished in spaces where people felt safe, respected, and understood. Angela's empathy transformed not just individual experiences, but the culture of the entire organization. Angela also demonstrated empathy in her vision for growth. She recognized that leadership is not solely about financial metrics or market dominance, but about cultivating talent, developing potential, and creating lasting impact. She invested in professional development programs, mentorship initiatives, and opportunities for advancement, understanding that empowering others strengthens the organization as a whole. By elevating those around her, she multiplied the impact of her leadership, ensuring that success was not concentrated in her own achievements, but shared across the company. Her empathetic approach extended to clients and stakeholders as well. Angela understood that trust, respect, and genuine understanding are the foundation of lasting relationships. She engaged with partners thoughtfully, listened to their needs, and approached negotiations with fairness and integrity. Empathy, in her view, was not limited to internal interactions. It was a principle that guided every decision, every conversation, and every strategic initiative. It created an ecosystem of mutual respect and collaboration that amplified the company's influence and reach. Angela's leadership also reflected the emotional intelligence she had cultivated through years of experience. She understood her own strengths and limitations, recognized the importance of humility, and modeled resilience in moments of uncertainty. Employees observed not just her decisions, but the compassion, patience, and integrity with which she led. They learned that leadership is not about asserting power, but about creating an environment where people feel valued, inspired, and capable of extraordinary achievements. Through empathetic leadership, Angela bridged the gap between vision and execution. She translated her strategic goals into actionable plans that were understood, embraced, and executed by her teams. She nurtured collaboration, encouraged innovation, and demonstrated that success is a shared endeavor. Her empathy became a multiplier, transforming ordinary talent into extraordinary performance and ordinary workplaces into environments where potential could flourish fully. Angela's example shows that leadership grounded in empathy is both morally right and strategically powerful. It demonstrates that the ability to understand and uplift others is essential to sustained success. Empathy builds trust, strengthens culture, and empowers individuals to contribute at their highest capacity, creating a cycle of performance, engagement, and shared accomplishment. Angela always believed that greatness is not reserved for the privileged or the extraordinary by birth, but emerges when ordinary people embrace responsibility, courage, and vision. She had grown up witnessing acts of quiet heroism in her community, neighbors helping each other through adversity, parents sacrificing their comfort for their children's futures, and friends pushing themselves to achieve beyond what anyone thought possible. These acts, though often unnoticed, shaped her understanding of what it truly means to do extraordinary things. Throughout her journey, Angela encountered countless individuals who, despite ordinary circumstances, demonstrated remarkable resilience and creativity. There were employees who had quietly shouldered overwhelming workloads for years, finding innovative ways to solve problems when leadership overlooked them. There were colleagues who, despite repeated setbacks, persisted in improving processes, refining strategies, and building relationships that would later become essential to the company's transformation. Angela saw in these ordinary people the same spark that had fueled her own journey. Determination, resourcefulness, and the refusal to accept limits imposed by circumstance or skepticism. She learned that extraordinary achievements often begin with small acts of courage. A junior employee presenting an idea despite fear of rejection, a mid-level manager implementing a process improvement without waiting for approval, a team member volunteering extra effort during a crisis. These actions, though seemingly minor, accumulate into profound impact over time. Angela recognized that ordinary people become extraordinary when they take responsibility, act with initiative, and refuse to be confined by expectation or doubt. Leadership, in her eyes, was about recognizing and amplifying this potential. Angela's philosophy extended to mentorship and empowerment. She invested time in helping individuals discover their strengths, refine their skills, and step into challenges they might otherwise avoid. She understood that extraordinary results are rarely achieved in isolation. They emerge from collaboration, encouragement, and the cultivation of an environment where people feel capable of contributing at their highest level. By providing guidance, support, and trust, she enabled ordinary people to accomplish what they might have considered impossible. She also believed in the ripple effect of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. One courageous act can inspire others, creating a culture of possibility that multiplies across teams, departments, and entire organizations. Angela encouraged storytelling, celebrating successes big and small, and highlighting the impact of consistent effort. Employees began to see themselves not as cogs in a machine, but as agents of change with the power to influence outcomes, shape culture, and leave lasting legacies. Angela's own journey exemplified this principle. Though she had faced skepticism due to her accent, her background, and her gender, she relied on ordinary habits, discipline, persistence, reflection, and continuous learning to achieve extraordinary outcomes. Each step she took, from delivering newspapers in her youth to acquiring a major company, was built on consistent, deliberate actions over time. Her life demonstrated that extraordinary success is not always about innate talent, but about cultivating habits, embracing responsibility, and acting decisively when opportunity presents itself. She encouraged her employees to adopt the same mindset. Ordinary actions, performed with purpose and intention, lead to extraordinary results. Every task completed with care, every challenge approached with courage, and every collaboration pursued with integrity contributes to a larger tapestry of achievement. Angela created a culture where individuals were not defined by titles or positions, but by their willingness to take initiative, solve problems, and persist despite obstacles. Angela's leadership demonstrated that ordinary people, when guided by vision, empowered with trust, and inspired by possibility, can achieve outcomes that transform organizations, communities, and even industries. She witnessed employees rising to challenges they never thought possible, innovating in ways that redefined company standards, and leading initiatives that created lasting impact. Each success reinforced her belief that extraordinary accomplishments are rooted in ordinary people taking deliberate, courageous action. Through this philosophy, Angela cultivated a sense of collective ownership, responsibility, and pride. She reinforced that extraordinary achievement is not limited to a select few, but accessible to anyone willing to embrace effort, accountability, and vision. By recognizing and amplifying the potential in ordinary people, she demonstrated the power of leadership, grounded in empathy, empowerment, and unwavering belief in human capability. Angela's journey was a testament to the enduring power of perseverance and the transformative impact of change. She understood that no matter how bold the vision, no matter how innovative the plan, meaningful progress requires unwavering commitment to consistent effort and the courage to adapt. Change, she believed, is not a single event or decision. It is a process, often slow, sometimes uncertain, and frequently met with resistance. Yet, it is precisely through perseverance that change becomes possible, sustainable, and profound. From the earliest days of her career, Angela had witnessed the tension between effort and outcome. She had experienced rejection, skepticism, and underestimation, moments that could have easily discouraged her. But instead of yielding to frustration or retreating into comfort, she approached every setback as an opportunity to refine her strategy and strengthen her resolve. She learned that perseverance is not blind stubbornness. It is the disciplined, intelligent pursuit of goals, tempered by reflection, adjustment, and insight. It is the recognition that every step forward, no matter how small, contributes to the eventual transformation of circumstances, organizations, and lives. Angela applied this principle as she began to reshape the company she had acquired. She knew that structural improvements, cultural shifts, and operational innovations would not materialize overnight. Employees needed reassurance, processes required reevaluation, and stakeholders had to regain trust. Change was not instantaneous. It required patience, strategic focus, and the consistent reinforcement of values and vision. Angela remained steadfast, understanding that perseverance, is the engine that powers transformation, and that leaders must model commitment, even when results are not immediately visible. Her approach to change was deliberate and inclusive. Angela engaged employees in the process, seeking their input, recognizing their contributions, and celebrating small victories along the way. She understood that sustainable change is not imposed from above, but cultivated collaboratively. Drawing on the collective insight, energy, and creativity of those involved, this approach reinforced the principle that perseverance alone is insufficient without empathy, communication, and the ability to inspire shared commitment. Change becomes meaningful only when people are empowered to participate in it, see its benefits, and contribute to its realization. Angela also recognized that perseverance requires adaptability. The path to transformation is rarely linear. Challenges arise, unexpected obstacles appear, and initial strategies often require adjustment. Rather than viewing these hurdles as failures, she reframed them as learning opportunities, essential components of growth, and catalysts for innovation. By embracing flexibility alongside persistence, she ensured that change was not only achieved but sustained, evolving to meet the needs of the organization and the people it served. Perseverance and change, Angela understood, are deeply intertwined with leadership. It is the leader's responsibility to maintain focus on long-term vision while navigating short-term obstacles, to inspire confidence during moments of doubt, and to demonstrate resilience in the face of adversity. Angela's commitment to this principle became evident in the way she approached decision-making, problem-solving, and organizational development. Every initiative she led was grounded in the understanding that meaningful transformation is the product of steady effort applied over time, not a single dramatic act. Her personal experiences inform this philosophy. From humble beginnings, delivering newspapers and working multiple jobs, to facing rejection and skepticism, Angela had learned that perseverance is a skill cultivated through practice, reflection, and courage. Change, when approached intentionally and strategically, is not only possible, but inevitable for those willing to commit themselves fully. She carried these lessons into every aspect of her leadership, demonstrating to employees, partners, and stakeholders that persistence in the pursuit of improvement is both morally compelling and strategically effective. Angela's story illustrates that perseverance amplifies the power of change. Individuals who persist in the face of adversity, who embrace challenges with determination, and who act consistently toward their vision, create conditions where transformation can flourish. It is through this disciplined commitment to effort that organizations evolve, communities improve, and ordinary people are empowered to achieve extraordinary outcomes. Perseverance transforms potential into reality, resistance into progress, and aspiration into tangible achievement. Through her leadership, Angela showed that the path to meaningful change is never easy, but it is always worth pursuing. She inspired those around her to embrace effort, resilience, and courage as essential tools for transformation. She demonstrated that sustained perseverance when paired with strategic insight and empathy, can overcome even the most entrenched obstacles, redefine expectations, and create a legacy that extends far beyond individual accomplishment. Angela's journey, from her early beginnings to acquiring a company that once underestimated her, was underpinned by an unshakable belief in a better future. She understood that vision alone is insufficient without the conviction that change is possible, that circumstances can improve, and that individuals have the power to shape outcomes that extend beyond themselves. Belief in a better future is both a compass and a catalyst. It directs action, sustains effort, and inspires others to invest in what can be, rather than being constrained by what is. Throughout her career, Angela witnessed the transformative effect of hope. She saw individuals rise above limitations imposed by society, education, or circumstance because they dared to envision possibilities that others dismissed. She understood that belief is not passive. It is active, requiring courage, perseverance, and a willingness to challenge assumptions. Every time she faced rejection, skepticism, or obstacles, her belief in a better future became the anchor that allowed her to move forward with clarity and determination, seeing beyond temporary setbacks to the long-term impact she could achieve. Angela's belief in the future was not abstract or idealistic. It was rooted in action, grounded in the consistent choices she made to improve herself, influence others, and create conditions for success. She invested in learning, refined her leadership skills, and sought to understand the challenges facing the company she now led. Her conviction was visible in the way she engaged with employees, partners, and stakeholders, inspiring them to believe in a shared vision of growth, innovation, and excellence. Belief, in Angela's view, is contagious. When a leader embodies it authentically, it spreads throughout the organization, empowering people to strive for outcomes they once thought unattainable. The challenges Angela faced were formidable. She had to contend not only with operational hurdles, but also with the lingering doubts of those who had once laughed at her accent, underestimated her capabilities, or questioned her authority. Yet her belief in a better future enabled her to see beyond judgment, prejudice, and short-term difficulties. She understood that skepticism and criticism are temporary obstacles when measured against the enduring power of vision and determination. By focusing on what could be achieved, rather than being paralyzed by what had been doubted, she created momentum that carried her and her team forward. Angela's belief extended beyond business metrics. It encompassed people, culture, and societal impact. She recognized that true leadership involves shaping environments where potential can flourish, where ordinary individuals are empowered to contribute, and where obstacles are seen as opportunities for learning and growth. She inspired employees to adopt the same mindset, emphasizing that every challenge is surmountable, every setback a chance to recalibrate, and every effort invested in improvement contributes to a larger, meaningful outcome. This belief transformed not only the company, but the lives of those who engaged with her vision. She also understood The importance of persistence in sustaining belief. A vision for a better future is fragile if not nurtured through consistent action. Angela demonstrated that hope is reinforced through preparation, perseverance, and the willingness to act decisively, even when outcomes are uncertain. She modeled this approach by addressing inefficiencies, fostering innovation, and creating a culture of accountability and empowerment. Every milestone achieved, every challenge overcome, and every individual empowered reinforced the notion that the future is shaped not by chance, but by deliberate effort and collective commitment. Angela's story illustrates that belief in a better future is both personal and communal. It begins within the individual, as the conviction that one's actions can affect change, but it flourishes through the influence on others, inspiring collective effort, shared responsibility, and collaboration toward a common goal. She demonstrated that when people are empowered to see potential, embrace challenges, and persist in the face of adversity, extraordinary outcomes emerge from ordinary beginnings. Through her unwavering belief, Angela inspired a culture of optimism, resilience, and determination. She encouraged employees to dream bigger, act bolder, and persist longer than they might have believed possible. She showed that a better future is not a distant abstraction, but a tangible outcome shaped by action, vision, and the courage to invest in what can be achieved. Her leadership embodies the principle that belief, when combined with preparation, perseverance, and empathy, transforms possibility into reality, inspiring generations to embrace their own capacity to effect meaningful change. Angela's journey shows us that greatness is not defined by the judgments of others, the limitations of circumstance, or the skepticism of those who cannot see your vision. It is defined by the courage to persist, the determination to act boldly, and the belief that ordinary people, when guided by purpose, resilience, and empathy, can achieve extraordinary outcomes. She turned doubt into opportunity, rejection into insight, and challenges into triumph, proving that perseverance and vision are stronger than prejudice and underestimation. Her story reminds us that every obstacle is a chance to grow, every setback is a lesson in disguise, and every small act of courage contributes to a larger, transformative impact. Leadership is not about titles, wealth, or power. It is about inspiring others, empowering people to reach their potential, and taking responsibility for creating meaningful change. Angela's triumph, acquiring the very company that once laughed at her accent, is proof that when you believe in a better future and refuse to be limited by others' doubts, you can rewrite the rules, elevate those around you, and leave a legacy that transcends expectation. The lesson is clear: the power to transform your life, your community, and the world lies within you. Ordinary actions, driven by extraordinary belief, can create ripple effects that change everything. Every moment of perseverance, every act of courage, and every decision to rise above doubt is a step toward achieving the impossible. Keep pushing, keep believing, and never allow anyone else's assumptions to define what you are capable of, because the future belongs to those who have the courage to create it, just as Angela did.